Odd Switch Episode 2. The previous one got a ton of good feedback. If you haven't checked it out, go and check it out up here. It is Jelly Black versus Garon Box Ink Black. Many of you have given me a lot of suggestions and I really appreciate that, but I actually had one more in mind when I was thinking of this whole series, so we're gonna stick with that for now, and then we will move on to the suggestions from you guys. Before we carry on with the video, this video is sponsored by PCBWay. PCBWay provides services for the creation of PCBs and fabrication. They provide all kinds of services. You can make all kinds of PCBs. All you need is one file and everything will be set for you. Same thing goes for fabrication. One CAD file and you're basically good to go. With this, you can create your very own custom keyboard from scratch. Everything will come assembled for you. All you have to do is the keyboard building part. They're currently having a 10% off on their CNC fabrication and 3D printing. So if you are interested, go and check out the link in the description down below for more information. Back to the video. So if you're new to this series is called Odd Switch. We are basically going to compare two oddly similar switches at two very different price points. Today we'll be taking a look at Tecsee Ice Candies and Everglide Aquakings. Beginning with prices, let's start with the Tecsee Ice Candies. Mine was sent over by Tecsee. They are being priced at $6.50 for 10 pieces, and you would probably get 70 pieces. So that's about $45.50 total and about 65 cents per switch. That's a good mid-range, I believe. As for Everglide Aquakings, they are being priced at $13 for 10 pieces. So if you were to get 70 pieces of this, that would be about $91 and about $1.30 per switch. So they are basically about 2 times the price of a Tecsee Ice Candy. So let's first run through Tecsee Ice Candy switches. Tecsee was actually manufacturing switches for a decent amount of time, since 2020 I believe. I am not too sure about this. But they started gaining popularity when they released switches on larger vendors such as Candies with the Neapolitan ice cream switches, the Kinetic Lab Huskies and Salmons, and the 1UP Keyboards Purple Pandas. This basically increased their exposure and they released their famous switch, the Ruby and the Sapphire. So after a few switch releases down the road, we are here on the Tecsee Ice Candies. It is a 5-pin linear switch with a 63.5 gram actuation force and a 2-stage gold-plated spring. It has a total travel of about 3.5 mm with no factory loop at all. Moving on to our Everglide Aquakings. Everglide first came about in 2019, but they actually had quite a few controversies when releasing their first batch of switches that included the Sakura Pinks, Coral Reds, Amber Orange and Jade Greens. People were actually calling them recolored Telios, which sparked the controversy called Stelios. But overall, it actually left a fairly positive impression. So they basically improved Aquakings from V1 all the way to V3, which is now. The Everglide Aquakings are a 5-pin linear switch and they have an actuation force of your choice of 62 or 67 grams. It has a total travel of 4 mm and is factory looped. So let's dive right in and take a look at some comparisons. Starting off with external features, the color. I don't know if I can say color because they're both fully transparent. The Aquakings are actually a little off-white compared to the Ice Candies. Basically, the Ice Candies are way more transparent and way more clear compared to the Aquakings. But aside from that, it's actually pretty similar, aside from Tecsee having their branding on the top housing, Aquakings not having any branding at all. Next up, let's open them up. During the whole switch opening process, it was actually fairly pleasant to open both switches up. They didn't require any prying whatsoever, just a good old press on the switch and it just pops off. So they're both good. Now that we've opened up the switches, we're gonna compare the individual components of the switches. The Tecsee Ice Candy has a long pole nylon stem while the Aquakings has a polycarbonate stem. And usually, I believe that nylon has a thockier sound, but that really depends on what kind of nylon it is as well, and they don't really state what nylon it is. But I'm just gonna take it as Tecsee has a thockier material that sound. Next up is spring. The Tecsee Ice Candies actually use a double-stage spring, so that is much longer than the Everglide Aquaking springs. They are both gold-plated, which is really nice to see from the outside since both switches are fully transparent. A quick explanation of what a 2-stage spring does. With a 2-stage spring, you basically get a more fast and forceful return, and of course you require a little more strength when pressing on the switch. So because of the springs, the Tecsee Candies actually feel a little more heavier but feel much faster. And finally, the housings. They are both made from polycarbonate, which I believe helps them create the switch fully transparent. But I do have to say the Aquakings actually feel a little more robust and denser. It just feels like a nicer kind of polycarbonate compared to Tecsee Ice Candies. And the Aquakings bottom housing actually have minor design differences with the Tecsee Ice Candies, so that basically makes the Aquakings look a little more sleek. Okay, so now I'm going to show you guys a comparison between a looped and unlooped for both switches. Now that we're done with that, we're gonna cover stem wobble. The ice candies actually have a lot more stem wobble compared to the Aquakings. I'm not sure why on this, but I'm guessing, I don't know. I didn't do enough research for this. But the Aquakings actually are really tight. There is barely any stem wobble at all. Next up, we're gonna do a typing test comparison of the switches looped. I do not have the switches unlooped because I forgot to film a typing test of them unlooped before I loop them. So I only have them looped, but it's fine because you guys heard the single key unlooped, right? I'm sorry, it will not happen again. Let's just do the typing test. We're gonna come to a conclusion here. Overall, I would actually recommend the Tecsee Ice Candies over the Everglide Aquakings. The Tecsee Ice Candies at a cheaper price is producing a much nicer, pleasant sound based on my personal preference. And with the two-stage spring, it actually feels much nicer and more like the return basically feels nicer to you when you are typing. The Aquakings are good, but the only reason I like them is because of how smooth they are when they are stock. So here are my recommendations based on your preferences. If you do not plan on looping your switches, use Everglide Aquakings, go get them because the factory loop job is actually hella amazing. The switches feel really smooth, unlooped, basically factory looped, and the typing experience is pretty nice. But if you plan on looping your switches, I think Tecsee Ice Candies are your way to go. The Tecsee Ice Candies stock actually feel pretty scratchy and don't sound that amazing, but once looped, the typing experience and sound it produces is much more worth your money compared to the Everglide Aquakings. The loop Tecsee Ice Candies actually help achieve a smoother typing experience because of the double stage spring and the nylon stem. So yeah, this is all based off personal preference. If you guys have a certain preference, comment that down below. And yeah, we have come to the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Go ahead and leave a like and subscribe if you like this kind of keyboard content. This was episode 2 of Odd Switch. Comment down below any kind of other switch comparisons you want to see or anything at all. You can comment your thoughts on switches. Give me some other switches to compare. And yeah, thank you for the member support as well. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.